In the months leading up to Kenya's deployment of police officers to Haiti, President William Ruto has considered political advice about the high-profile anti-gang mission. He also turned to less conventional counselors, a circle of Christian evangelical pastors close to him and his wife. The pastors have issued recommendations between Haitian communities and the president, according to interviews with 2 of the pastors and 3 Haitian and American evangelical leaders. Spokespeople for President Ruto and his wife Rachel did not respond to requests for comment for this story. The pastors' efforts ahead of the deployment, due to begin later this month, have included meetings with Haitians in the United States, as well as evangelical counterparts, U.S. government officials, and even Haiti's most notorious gang leader, Jimmy Barbecue Chorizo. We believe that we are a tool that God will use to help, said Serge Musa Silwa, an evangelical pastor in Kenya involved in the initiative. A sociologist by training, Musa Silwa said he has worked on conflict resolution in his native Democratic Republic of Congo and several other African countries. People involved in the initiative say the relationship forged with Haitian communities will help the Kenyan-led multinational force avoid the mistakes of foreign interventions in Haiti in recent decades. Besides failing to stabilize Haiti, those missions left behind legacies of human rights abuses and disease, most infamously a cholera outbreak believed to have been introduced by Nepali UN peacekeepers in 2010. A UN-appointed panel concluded a peacekeepers' camp was the likely source of the cholera epidemic, which killed about 10,000 Haitians. The UN has not accepted legal responsibility. The more you are connected to the population, the more you can format the kind of intervention you are going to lead, said Daniel Jean-Louis, the president of the Baptiste Haiti mission, which has worked with the Kenyan pastors. This is one of the reasons why all the previous missions failed. The UN has said it left the country relatively stable when a 13-year peacekeeping mission withdrew from Haiti in 2017. A UN peacekeeping person said the mission had worked in close partnership with civil society and community-based organizations to reduce violence and improve municipal governance. Not everyone is convinced by the Kenyan pastor's strategy. Evangelicals themselves have a complex history in Haiti where they have poured resources into humanitarian projects but also face criticisms for the ethical standards, including alleged child trafficking by some missionaries after a devastating 2010 earthquake, and for preaching intolerance of local spiritual practices. British Act institution deployed knee-jerk and stopgap responses in the aftermath of Black Lives Matter movement as they attempted to avoid criticism for the lack of diversity in their collections, according to the artist Gavin Jant-Jazz. The South African-born artist, who was a key figure during the British Black art movement of the 1980s, said that under pressure organizations approached him to buy work that they had ignored since it was made decades earlier. He said institutions would come to me and say, "Do you have a work from the 1970s that we can buy?" When I was making those works in the 1970s, nobody wanted to look at them, and the things I'm making now, nobody wants to look at it. It is like the rinse cycle of a washing machine, it doesn't change. During the Black Lives Matter movement, most of the UK's prominent arts institutions, including Tate, the Barbican and the South Bank Centre, released statements pledging to, among other things, address racial in South Africa, which had been condemned for killing hundreds of school children during the Soweto uprising that happened in a change of U.S. policy guidance issued by the Biden administration, which last year gave a green light to the U.S. District Court in Delaware to move forward with the auction. CITCO and its supervisory boards did not immediately respond to requests for comments. A proposal to tax Brazilians' small online purchases from abroad was dropped from a bill on sustainability tax incentives for automakers on Tuesday, prompting the nation's Senate to postpone a vote on the wider bill. Senators were scheduled to vote on the bill, which was approved last week by Brazil's lower house, but decided to push talks to Wednesday after Senator Rodrigo Cunha The rapporteur of the bill removed the unpopular proposed 20% import tax for online purchases under $50. Cunha said it is not the ideal moment for the measure and called for a separate vote. But Senate President Rodrigo Pacheco told journalists that the proposal should be debated by the whole Senate to reflect the will of the majority. Pacheco argued it would be reasonable to tax international online purchases. The government has sought to balance public spending with more tax revenue, although he previously expressed opposition to the import tax proposal. Last year, Lula's administration tried to implement a version of the online sales tax, which is supported by local retailers amid growing presence of Asian e-commerce giants in Brazil, but he gave up after strong backlash. The proposal, which is facing intense consumer backlash, would affect global online retailers such as Alibaba, AliExpress, Seas, Shopee, and fashion retailer Shein, which have gained a huge presence in the Brazilian market in the last few years. U.S. President Joe Biden on Tuesday instituted a broad asylum ban on migrants caught illegally crossing the U.S.-Mexico border, a major enforcement move in the run-up to November elections that will decide control of the White House. Migrants caught crossing illegally could be quickly deported or turned back to Mexico under the measure, which will take effect just after midnight. There will be exceptions for unaccompanied children, people who face serious medical or safety threats, and victims of trafficking, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security said. Biden, a Democrat, has toughened his approach to border security as immigration has emerged as a top issue for Americans in the run-up to November 5th elections, where he will face Republican Donald Trump, who made a hardline stance on immigration, a centerpiece of his administration, and vowed a wide-ranging crackdown if re-elected. Biden took office in 2021, vowing to reverse some of Trump's restrictive immigration policies, but grappled with record levels of migrants caught crossing illegally, a trend that has strained U.S. border authorities and cities receiving new arrivals. During a White House press conference explaining the proclamation, Biden said asylum access would remain available to migrants who registered for an appointment using an app known as CBP-1 or used other legal pathways instead of crossing illegally. This action will help us gain control of our border and restore order into the process, Biden said. This ban will remain in place until the number of people trying to enter illegally is reduced to a level that our system can effectively manage. A bill to safeguard access to contraceptives faces a U.S. Senate vote on Wednesday, part of a push by congressional Democrats to focus public attention on reproductive rights ahead of the November election, but with little change of passage. The Right to Contraception Act, which would protect birth control access nationwide, is unlikely to meet the 60-vote threshold needed to pass in the chamber, where Democrats hold a narrow 51-49 majority. The fight over reproductive rights is a flashpoint in U.S. politics, especially since the Supreme Court's 2022 decision to end the constitutional rights to abortion access. Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump last month came under fire after comments that political rivals had suggested he would consider banning birth control, leading him to respond publicly that he would not support such a move. I would hope that protecting access to birth control would be the definition of an easy, uncontroversial decision here in the Senate. But the vote would tell all when we gavel in tomorrow, top Senate Democrat Chuck Schumer said on Tuesday. U.S. House of Representatives Democrats said on Tuesday they would attempt a legislative maneuver to force a vote on the same bill the Senate is taking up, though they face slim chances of success in the Republican-controlled chamber. Republicans have a choice to make. They can put aside their MAGA ideology and join us to get this bill passed, or they can triple down on their anti-freedom extremism in full view of the American people. Number 2 House Democrat Catherine Clark said on Tuesday. Some Senate Republicans criticized the push. It is an election year in which Democratic incumbent president is running behind, so a decision has been made to raise abortion to a high profile, said Republican Senator Bill Cassidy. Referring to President Joe Biden, you can't normalize a procedure where the intent is to end a life, Cassidy said. In May, a survey of 3,934 U.S. residents 18 and older 37% said Biden has a better approach to abortion compared to 27% who said the same about Trump ahead of a November 5th election expected to be close. Skimmers said that protesters at cities in Taiwan and elsewhere marked the date. Chinese tanks rolled into the square before dawn on June 4th, 1989, to end weeks of pro-democracy demonstrations by students and workers. Images of a lone Chinese man in a white shirt standing in front of a column of tanks spread around the world and became the iconic image of the demonstrations. Decades after the military crackdown, rights activists say the demonstrators' original goals, including a free press and freedom of speech, remain distant, and June 4th is still a taboo topic in China. The ruling Communist Party has never released a death toll, though rights groups and witnesses say the figure could run into the thousands. In China-ruled Hong Kong, police officers tightened security around downtown Victoria Park, where large June 4th candlelight vigils had been held annually before tougher new national security laws took effect in recent years. Police took away several individuals in vans, including 68-year-old Alexandra Wong, after she held up a bouquet of flowers and shouted that the people will not forget. Others who lit up their mobile phones in the park at night were escorted away and searched by police. Over the past week, 8 people were arrested for sedition under a new national security law, including prominent activist Chow Hang-tung, stemming from what media said were online posts linked to June 4th. There are still forces that attempt to undermine Hong Kong's stability and security, Hong Kong leader John Lee told reporters, without mentioning June 4th specifically. In Taiwan, several hundred protesters held a vigil on Liberty Square in downtown Taipei, holding up small LED candles and laying flowers before an altar with the numbers 8964. The more they try to hide this event, the more effort we should put into remember it, said Wan Chang-hao, 33, a university researcher in the crowd. Authorities in the Philippines have ordered residents living near Canlaon volcano in the country's west to evacuate after an eruption sent a 5-kilometer plume of ash into the sky. The 6-minute explosive eruption on Monday caused a strong earthquake and prompted the suspension of work and schools in nearby Canlaon City, while 3 airlines cancelled 32 flights on Tuesday. Go down to your respective evacuation centers, be vigilant and prepare important things such as water and food, said Jose Chibasco Cardenas, mayor, or if there were fatalities since the eruption on Monday. Response teams have been deployed in the affected areas to move the residents to safe places, the state civil defense agency said in a statement on Monday. Canlaon is one of the country's 24 active volcanoes and last erupted in December 2017. The Philippines is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire, where volcanic activity and earthquakes are common. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We return after this break.
I hope nobody carry belle.
Why you ask, oh?
Because this road where they see, so you no guarantee safe delivery.
We just dey vote for government, but we not get good governance.
At all.
Road so e no dey, light o outside, the infrastructure nko e come turn to be forbidden fruit for the people.
Corruption, well everything. Hello?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
No vex. Now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I hear, I'm hearing you.
Yes. We saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Yes. Are you working on them now?
Ma, the prices you quoted are way too high now.
Madam, sorry, please don't cost.
We found the laptop you said is 1.8 million naira for 600,000 naira.
Hello?
Now my body network there.
I can't hear you. Network is bad.
Madam, we can hear you. Continue.
Hello, I can't hear you. We call you back.
Their behavior not good, man.
Madam, now this kind behavior they kill our country. You suppose do things differently, make Nigeria for better.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
and with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Corruption not in my country.
I don't get a lot. Boy, they won't buga me small. They say, man, give them bribe. I say, nothing. Okay, now. We'll go block later. You remember that contract we will do that time now? They don't pay.
But first, you see the house rent with the old since. We go first call caretaker, take the money, slap am.
Beg, see, you know, say I get annual levy why they pay for club. Where me and boys they shark beer in our house, I supposed to pay that one. You remember say me and tell you I go buy you motor. I go buy now.
Okay, they pay you money now. We don't they beg caretaker? Why would they beg landlord, old man, and they agree give us time? Money can't come now. You won't divert am. You said na corruption. Corruption, not in my house and not in my country.
Sure.
Corruption not in my country.
This message is brought to you by the Akinfade Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation,
And with broadcast support from Atlantic Television Network.
Welcome back. This is the international news on Atlantic Television. Now the rest of our stories. Narendra Modi's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party has lost its parliamentary majority, dealing an expected blow to the Prime Minister and forcing him to negotiate with coalition partners in order to return to power. With all votes counted early on Wednesday morning, it was clear that the landslide for the BJP predicted in polls had not materialized, and instead there had been a pushback against the strong Prime Minister and his Hindu nationalist politics in swaths of the country. The party lost 62 seats, bringing its total down to 240, below the 272 required for parliamentary majority. It was the first time since Modi was elected in 2014 that the BJP has not won a clear majority on its own. Nonetheless, together with its political allies, known as the National Democratic Alliance, its win amounts to about 292 seats, which is enough to form a majority government to rule for the next 5 years and return Modi to office for a third term. Meanwhile, the opposition alliance, which goes by the acronym INDIA, far outperformed expectations, collectively winning more than 230 seats. The alliance, formed of more than 20 national and regional opposition parties, had come together for the first time in this election with the aim of defeating Modi. Despite the tight race, Modi insisted he had been given a mandate to lead again in a victory speech. Addressing voters at the BJP headquarters in Delhi, Modi said he was very happy today. I would like to bow down before the people of the country, said Modi. Today is an emotional moment for me, personally as well. This was my first election after I lost my mother. The blessings of the people for the third time, and after 10 years, boost our morale, give new strength. Our opponents, despite being united, could not even win as many seats as BJP won. BJP officials were advised on a number of BJP vulnerabilities in the last few years, whether that is economic stress or pushback against Hindu nationalism, but instead they've done pretty well. The Israeli military said it has started operational activity in 2 areas of central Gaza in possible broadening of its month-long ground offensive against Hamas. The military said Wednesday its forces were operating both above and below ground in eastern parts of Deir al-Balah and Berej, a built-up Palestinian refugee camp dating back to the 1948 war surrounding Israel's creation. It said the operation began with airstrikes on militant infrastructure, after which troops began a targeted daylight operation in both areas. The 8-month offensive has largely cut off the flow of food, medicine, and other supplies to Palestinians who are facing widespread hunger. International mediators wait for Israel and Hamas to respond to a new ceasefire and hostage release proposal, according to Qatar, which has played a key role in negotiations alongside Egypt and the United States. Announcing the proposal last week, U.S. President Joe Biden said the 3-phase plan was Israeli. However, Israeli leaders have since appeared to distance themselves from the proposal and vowed to keep fighting Hamas until the group is destroyed. Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza has killed more than 36,000 Palestinians, according to the health ministry, which does not distinguish between combatants and civilians. Israel launched the war in Gaza after Hamas' October 7 attack, in which militants stormed into southern Israel, killed some 1,200 people, mostly civilians, and abducted about 250. Around 80 hostages captured on October 7 are believed to still be alive in Gaza, alongside the remains of 43 others. A gunman was shot and captured by Lebanese soldiers after a Wednesday morning shootout outside the U.S. Embassy near Beirut that injured an embassy security guard, the military and embassy officials said. The attack took place as tensions continue to simmer in the tiny Mediterranean country, where months of fighting between Hezbollah militants and Israeli troops has displaced thousands along the border following years of political deadlock and economic hardship. The Lebanese military, in a statement, said that soldiers shot an assailant who they only described as a Syrian national. The gunman was wounded and taken to a hospital. No motive was immediately clear. However, Lebanese media have published photos that appear to show a bloodied attacker wearing a black vest with the words Islamic State written in Arabic and English initials I and S. Local media reported that there was a gunfight involving at least one attacker and lasting almost half an hour. A video that surfaced on social media showed a gunman in a parking lot across the embassy's entrance shooting with what appears to be an assault rifle. The U.S. Embassy said that in an initial statement that all of its staff were safe following the attack near the entrance to the sprawling diplomatic compound, and that Lebanese troops and embassy security mobilized quickly. An embassy spokesperson later said in a statement that one embassy security guard was injured in the attack. With respect to his privacy, we cannot say more, but we wish him a full recovery, said the spokesperson, who spoke on condition of anonymity in accordance with regulations. A statement from Lebanese caretaker Prime Minister Najib Mikati's office said he was informed following meetings with the defense minister and any commander that the situation was now stable and that serious investigations are underway. An Israeli army raid in April set off a near 3-day gun battle with Palestinian militants. By the time it was over, homes had been blasted to rubble and many residents had fled. The raid wasn't in Gaza, where Israel is at war with Hamas, but more than 100 kilometers away in the Nur Shams refugee camp in the West Bank, a territory that has been under Israeli military rule for over a half century. The persistence of Palestinian military in the West Bank and its surge since the war in Gaza began shows the limits of Israel's military might as the decades-old conflict grinds on with little prospect of a political statement. Israel leaders portray the southern Gaza city of Rafah as Hamas's last bastion, suggesting that long elusive victory in the war ignited by the militants' October 7 attack may be at hand. They have vowed to maintain open-ended security control over Gaza and prevent the establishment of a Palestinian state. In the West Bank, the approach has been met with waves of armed struggle over the years. The battered streets of Nur Shams are a testament to a low-level but stubborn insurgency and offer a vivid illustration of what Gaza might be like after the war. Deep divisions will limit progress at reconciliation talks between Palestinian faction Hamas 50 hostages taking, triggering the war in Gaza. But even as it is pummeled militarily, the meetings of Hamas politicians with officials from the Fatah party that controls Palestinian politics in the Israeli occupied West Bank point to the group's aim of shaping the post-war order in the Palestinian territories, according to a source familiar with conversations with Hamas. The person, like other unnamed officials in this story, declined to be named because they weren't authorized to discuss sensitive matters with the media. Hamas, which ruled Gaza before the war, recognizes it cannot be part of any internationally recognized new government of the Palestinian territories when fighting in the enclave eventually ends, said the source. Nonetheless, it wants Fatah to agree to a new technocratic administration for the West Bank and Gaza as part of a wider political deal. The source and senior Hamas official Bassem Naim said, "We are speaking about political partnership and political unity to restructure the Palestinian entity." Naim, who attended the previous round of China talks, said in an interview, "Whether Hamas is in the government or outside it, that is not a prime demand of the movement, and it doesn't see it a condition for any reconciliation," he said. Naim, like much of Hamas's political leadership, operates in exile outside of Gaza. An Italian court found American Amanda Knox guilty of slander on Wednesday and handed her a three-year jail sentence in a case related to the murder in 2000 violence as she sought to clear her name in the last outstanding case against her. "The police threatened me with 30 years in prison. An officer slapped me 3 times saying, 'Remember, remember,'" she told the court on Wednesday, saying that police wanted her to blame Lumumba. "I am very sorry that I wasn't strong enough to withstand the pressure from the police," she added, speaking in Italian. The stabbing of 21-year-old Kercher and multiple trials provided fodder for tabloids on both sides of the Atlantic and inspired books and films. The European Court of Human Rights ruled in 2019 that there had been procedural errors during Knox's questioning, and Italy's highest court last year ordered another trial in the slander case. Lumumba was held for 2 weeks in 2007 before he was freed. When Patrick was accused by Amanda, he became known everywhere as the Monster of Perugia. Lumumba's lawyer, Carlo Pacelli, told reporters on Wednesday, saying that the conviction should be upheld. Lumumba was not in court. Rudy Guid, originally from the Ivory Coast, was sentenced to 16 years in jail for the killing of Kercher in a ruling that he acted with unnamed other culprits. He was granted early release in 2021. A local candidate for Germany's right-wing Alternative for Germany party has been injured in a knife attack, the party and police said on Wednesday, the second such incident in the city of Mannheim, days after a police officer was killed. AfD member Heinrich Koch was attacked with a cutting knife after confronting the suspect, who was tearing down election posters near a town square, the party said. Police said the 25-year-old suspect was Afghanistan, also severely injured 6 people, prompting calls for a tougher line on migration. A man with a dual U.S.-Russian nationality was sentenced by a Russian court on Wednesday to 3.5 years in prison, charges on charges of rehabilitating Nazim Yuri Malev was arrested last December over a social media post in which he was alleged to have denigrated the saint. The independent SOTA said Malev was a graduate of the law faculty of St. Petersburg University and had lived to derise and denazify the country. Anthony Albanese has accused the coalition of secret wages through changes to industrial relations law. The Prime Minister said the Liberal and National Party's gut instinct is always to gut workers' rights in an address to the Australian Council of Trade Union Conference on Wednesday evening. The opposition leader, Peter Dutton, has opened up a new front on industrial relations by committing to repeal rights to disconnect laws and in his budget reply promising to remove the complexity and hostility of labour laws have created the framework for the lowest paid workers in Australia.